Hello, I'm Morgan Peckma, Editor-in-Chief of City and State. Today our guest is Mark Panepinto. He is the Democratic nominee in the 60th Senate District out here in Western New York. We're here on location at Panepinto campaign headquarters. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
Obviously, people across the state are watching this race because a lot of people think that it could play a big role in who controls the state Senate. How big a part of your focus and your campaign is making that argument that flipping the seat to the Democrats will have statewide implications?
I mean, the voters in the district don't care about that. I mean, my campaigns run on, the living wage, the Women's Equality Act, and stopping the privatization of public education. Those are the things that I talk about on the campaign trail, that our canvassers talk about. And so the sort of macroeconomic, political scheme doesn't really weigh into my campaign at all.
But of course, in order for you to accomplish those priorities, right, a lot of those hinge upon who controls the Senate.
Well, that's true. I mean, if we're able to effectuate positive legislation in the state, we're going to need a Democratic majority in the state Senate.
Now, Governor Cuomo has not ruled out endorsing Mark Grisanti. All of the other Democratic leaders out here have really endorsed and gotten behind your campaign. How much of a factor is it where the governor comes down on this campaign?
The governor has a great economic agenda for Western New York, and I support the governor's economic agenda. I'm good friends with Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul's going to work hard in the district. And so if the governor decides to endorse or decides to stay out of the race, I don't think that's going to really have an impact on me, because this is going to be an issue-based race about the people that are running in the 60th Senate District.
When you go out knocking on doors, I mean, what do you see are the issues that resonate most with the voters here in the 60th?
Well, I think the voters in the 60th, I grew up in the town of Tonawanda, and that's a big part of the 60th along, a loop in the city of Buffalo and Hamburg and Evans and Orchard Park, and I've been to all parts of the district. People care about taxes, they care about jobs, and they want to see that their lives are being improved. And generally, I think they have an optimistic outlook. I think they think things are doing well in Buffalo. We just broke ground on the solar panel facility yesterday, and I think people are enthusiastic about what's happening at a state level here in Erie County. And I think that they think that government is helping to play a part in that.
Do you think that they attribute that success to Governor Cuomo, and that's the reason his endorsement would have perhaps greater weight in this race?
I think that across the board, all of our elected officials, Byron Brown and Mark Poloncarz, who both endorsed my candidacy, have been very successful. We've got 4 tower cranes downtown in Buffalo. I work downtown, I'm a lawyer. In my entire time there, I've never seen 1 tower crane. The fact that we have 4 downtown now is a testament to our local leaders, commitment to Erie County and the city of Buffalo, and the governor has certainly played a role in that.
Because of the larger political import of this race, I mean, there are going to be interest groups and donors who are going to take great interest from across the state. What do you see as your path to victory? Obviously, you're facing a very unusual field where you have the incumbent now running on the independence line. I mean, how do you think that you make it through here and wind up the victor in November?
It's a Democratic district. I mean, I ran because it's a 2.5 to 1 Democratic enrollment advantage. I grew up in the largest town in the district, the town of Tonawanda. I live in the city of Buffalo, been active for 15 years politically in the city. And I think that, if Democrats come out and vote, it doesn't matter what outside interest groups will do. Democrats will deliver this for me. And it's hard to imagine a situation with a 3-way election on the other side of the V, so to speak, with me not being able to win.
And do you think that, I mean, with labor, obviously you're a labor attorney and you have the support of the Working Families Party. How big a role do you think labor is going to play in delivering victory for you?
Labor is going to play a key role in my campaign. I mean, I've been a union member for almost 30 years and active. I was a union organizer before I was a lawyer. So labor is going to play a huge role, and we're going to have a tremendous ground operation. We've already done that. We've knocked on probably 15,000 doors, and between now and Election Day, we'll knock on 20,000 more. There'll be labor walks, there'll be an active canvas. I've been going door to door, and that'll continue through Election Day.
Given the Democratic advantage in enrollment here, why do you think that the seat had fallen into Republican hands?
Well, it's an interesting district. I mean, it's only been one election cycle since this district has been formed, and so there's only been one time to vote. And last time the Democrats were split on that side of the V. We had Mike Amadeo, Chuck Swanick, and Greg Davis running on the conservative, independents, and Democratic line, and Mark Grisanti had two lines on the other side. I'm in an opposite situation now. I'm running with the unified Democratic Party as a Democrat and Working Families Party candidate, and the Republican and Independents vote will be split on the other side.
When we spoke to both of your opponents, they brought up your past conviction for election fraud. Can you explain what happened there and why that should be discounted by voters?
Well, it's common knowledge. I made a mistake 13 years ago, in 2001. I was, paid the price for that. I had my law license suspended for a month. Since that time, I've built a very successful law practice. I've raised 3 children, been heavily involved in the community, community groups from the North Buffalo Community Center to the North Buffalo Hockey and show and softball. And so I think, it's a mistake, and America's about redemption. And people make mistakes all the time, and they come back. And I think that, my candidacy is about that. A couple of years ago, I wanted to run in this race, and I was asked to step aside. And I did that because I'm a team player and a party player. And I think, the good things I've done in the community in the last 13 years outweigh the mistake I made 13 years ago.
But your conviction pertains to something that's directly related to politics, and it could be perceived as a reflection upon the integrity that you would have in office. I mean, election fraud obviously is a very serious crime. It wasn't like you were, it was a DUI or something like that. Could you see how that can really shape perception of you as a candidate?
Well, I think people need to look at me as an individual. I grew up in a working class family, first person to go to school. I'm a construction worker who became a successful college athlete and a lawyer. And I think that in the process of building who I am, I made a mistake 13 years ago, which I owned up to, paid a price for it, and we moved on from that. And so I think if people want to dwell on the past and look at who I was 13 years ago, they can certainly make that decision. But if you view who I am now, which is a father of 3 wonderful daughters, an active parent in their life, a very successful lawyer who represents injured workers, that they'll make a value judgment that I really am a sort of a middle class warrior and somebody that's going to fight for the people who live in this district. And people move forward.
Have you been in touch with the Democratic leaders in the Senate? To what degree have they been involved in trying to help you win here?
Well, Senator Gineris is head of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. He's very supportive of my campaign. And I hope to, build a campaign and join a Democratic majority. But this is really a grassroots campaign that's run out of Buffalo with local folks and labor people and my friends and family and law partners that have been involved in building this campaign. And we've got lots of elected officials involved. The mayor of the city of Buffalo is here today. Was endorsed by the county executive today. Those folks will bring their people into the campaign, and we'll run a grassroots campaign.
When you talk about the women's equality agenda and some of your other priorities, those are largely the priorities of the Democratic minority and as they hope to be the Democratic majority. What personally do you want to bring to the Senate? What would be your unique priorities as a senator?
Well, first of all, the women's equality act. I'm a father of 3 daughters. I want to be able to look my daughters in the eye and tell them as a senator, we passed a bill that ensures that you'll have equal pay for equal work. So that's just not a Democratic minority issue. It's my issue as a father. Personally, there's worker safety issues which I think need to be strengthened in New York State. But those are low on the agenda. Those are personal issues to me as what I've seen as a lawyer and as an activist that we need to work on issues of worker safety. One example is right now we give tax subsidies to corporations and they get a 15-year tax break, and there's nothing to ensure that those companies provide jobs, or create safe jobs. That's a personal issue that I've talked about. It's really about corporate accountability and an end to corporate welfare. That's a personal issue to me.
One of the, Albany is renowned for its dysfunction. It's mired in a horrible ethics scandal. We just see indicted legislator after indicted legislator. What would you do to try to address corruption and the deficiency of ethics in Albany?
I think public finance is a path to that. And the Republican Senate has blocked public finance. If we take the money out of politics, I think that, we can really help to clean it up.
Are there, what else should, voters and our viewers who are political insiders, what should they know about Mark Panepinto? If you're in New York City, what would you really like to leave with them?
I'd like to leave with them that, I'm an upstate guy who views the world through the prism of being a father, a lawyer, and a former union organizer. And there are issues of social justice that, we can really work on in the Senate. I'm a little bit of an idealist. I think that every person can make a difference. And, if I'm talking to a New York City person, they all think that we're in Pennsylvania or in West Virginia up here in Western New York. We're not. We're part of New York State, and we believe in the same progressive values as people in the city do. And if we're able to bring a progressive majority of the state Senate, I'll be able to work with those downstate folks to help pass that agenda.
Mark Panepinto, thank you so much for joining us on City and State TV today, and best of luck to you in November.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.